The Age of Enlightenment, also called the Age of Reason, was a time of guiding intellectual movement in Europe. The Enlightenment, a century and a half of reason, natural law, and progress, began with the publication of Novum Organum and ended with a critique of pure reason. Reason and progress dominate thoughts in religion, economics, politics, and therefore education. Locke, Newton, Quesnay, Rousseau, Condillac, and Smith are just a few of the philosophers of this time who endorsed reason and progress, as influenced by deism, laissez-faire economics, and political liberalism. What is a philosophe? Any of the literary men, scientists, and thinkers of 18th century France who were united in their conviction of the supremacy and efficacy of human reason. Philosophers supported political, economic, and social reforms brought on by disagreements within the Church, discussed for absolute monarchy and destructive wars. Reading furnishes the mind only with materials of knowledge. It is thinking that makes what we read ours. One of John Locke's interests was how the human mind acquired knowledge. He believed learning was accomplished through experience in the world. Essay Concerning Human Understanding is considered to be his most important work for education. Plato is my friend, Aristotle is my friend, but my greatest friend is truth. Isaac Newton is widely recognized as one of the most influential scientists in history. Around his advanced studies, he read from the modern philosophers, creating certain philosophical questions, basis of the new concept of nature in the framework of the scientific revolution. To secure the greatest amount of pleasure with the least possible outlay should be the aim of all economic effort. François Quesnay was the founder of the economic system that assumed human society is subject to natural laws, very much like the physical universe and similar to animal societies. We should not teach children the sciences, but give them a taste for them. Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed that a child, to live properly in a society, it was essential to cultivate a child's virtue and reason. In his first major philosophical work, Rousseau argues that the progression of sciences and arts has caused the corruption of virtue and morality. The discourse on the origin of inequality claims that humans are intrinsically good. Historical events corrupt society. Begin this logic by definitions, axioms, and principles. We shall begin by observing the lessons which nature gives us. Condillac was a believer of sensationism, rejecting the innate. Ideas are raw materials for knowledge, and experience provides ideas, enabling humans to focus attention, remember, imagine, abstract, judge, and reason. Science is the great antidote to the poison of enthusiasm and superstition. Adam Smith was a Scottish moral philosopher and political economist who advocated for government-supported schools where boys would be taught to read, write, and account, believing that the ignorant could become socially dangerous. So what is it that influenced all these philosophers? Intellectuals of the Enlightenment would use reason to discover natural laws governing human existence, and with this knowledge be able to guarantee the progress of the human race. Philosophers believed that by applying natural laws, human society would adjust to cure humankind of its social, political, and criminal ills and lead to a perfect society. With regards to institutions and natural order, a philosopher was to bear the archaic to rigorous criticism, to destroy those that were slow to progress, and to build new that conformed. The final task was to rehabilitate the population for the purpose of exercising natural goodness, thereby allowing them to live in perfect harmony. Philosophers rejected the Calvinist and Catholic views that humans were depraved and deprived. They believed society, being natural, artificial, and irrational, produced evil. A natural education would allow humans to follow their intrinsic compassionate nature. This progressive behavior would lead to a future better than the past. Philosophers were critical of established churches, viewing them as obstructions to progress. Many philosophers were known as deists, believing that a humanistic faith allowed them to use reason to create their own destiny. Deists were one of the first groups to push for separation of church and state. Physiocrats were of the first school of economic thinking. An economy's power is a consequence of its agricultural sector. Quesnay coined the term laissez-faire, laissez-passer in relation to an economic policy based on deregulation and tax reduction. The theory of moral sentiment states morality is dependent on sympathy between the individual and the other members of society. Smith suggests that a nation's wealth should be judged not by its store of gold and silver, but by the total of its commerce and production. Locke believed in natural rights, life, liberty, and property. Society was organized to protect these, and government exists by the consent of the governed. Thomas Jefferson, a believer in this contract theory, insisted that educated citizens were necessary for self-government. Rousseau believed social inequalities were the result of artificial distinctions based on wealth, property, and prestige. Rousseau identified 5 rudimentary stages of human development in Emile, although other authors varied from 3 to 6 stages. Emile is a reaction against the prevailing verbal and literary education. These stages are infancy, childhood, boyhood, adolescence, and youth. Few men have had as great an influence upon the organization, method, and content of education. Rousseau believed education was a natural process developed from within. It was an extension of natural influences, not the attainment of information. Rousseau became the inspiration for numerous education reformers, making his vagaries into a practicable procedure. Rousseau may not have been a sensationist, but his views on education logically tied in with the New World view that the universe was a vast mechanism functioning according to its own laws, that are a natural and objective reality that exhibits patterns and regularities. The 5 sense phases allow us to form a collective and simultaneous concept. Rousseau's hopeful vision of the innate goodness in children was recycled in the educational ideas of the 19th century reformers Pestalozzi, Owen, and Mann, and the 20th century progressives Dewey and Kilpatrick.